Okay, there we go. All right, so real quickly with example 1, you plug in x and y, solve for a, and then all variation equations go through the origin. Okay? All right, in example 2, it says Hooke's law states that the distance d a spring stretches varies directly with the force F that is applied to it. So I see distance d varies directly with the force F. So when you see that, we can immediately write down a variation equation. The d varies directly with the F. Distance varies directly with the force. So letter A says, suppose a spring stretches 15 inches when a force of 9 pounds is applied. So I think it's pretty obvious that you can tell that the F value is 9, but what does the 15 represent? Say it again. It's the distance, right? So this one is the distance. So just like example 1, they gave us an x and a y, they're giving us the d and the f. And then the only thing unknown is that constant of variation. So let's plug in. D is 15, f is 9. And then this is just like the warm-up we did today. Dividing by 9. Remember to reduce all fractions. So this is 5/3 equals a. Now I know a. Plugging it in, I can have a general equation that relates d to f all the time. So d equals 5/3 f. So in letter B, predict the distance that the spring will stretch when a force of 6 pounds is applied. Anybody have any ideas? How can we do this? Yeah, Megan?
You can say d equals 5/3 times 6.
Good job, because they gave us the force. Now, when you're taking a fraction times a whole number, you can change the whole number to 6/1 and then do your reducing. So d equals 10. When you have a word problem and there are units involved, you are required to include your units. So I'm finding distance. What are the units to distance here? Inches. Good job. Okay? So remember, on a quiz or a test, you need to include your units. All right, questions on this one? All right, example 3 says great white sharks have triangular teeth. The table below gives the length of a side of a tooth and the body length for each of 6 great white sharks. Tell whether tooth length and body length show direct variation. If so, write an equation that relates the quantities. All right, so you remember the experiment we did today where we measured the elbow to the wrist and then we measured our feet. If you take y divided by x, it came out to be 1 every time. So what I could do here is if I take the body length divided by the tooth length, and it equals some constant, then I have direct variation. Okay, just like the experiment we did today. So here's what I want you to do. Take out your calculators. And we're going to divide the body length by the tooth length. So we're going to take 215 divided by 1.8, and I got approximately 119. Again, I took 215 divided by 1.8 and got approximately 119. So go ahead and do the remaining division where you take body length divided by tooth length. So just like the experiment we did where our numbers varied like 1, 1.03, 1.1, 0.8, 0.9, 0.96, we could tell collecting that data today that it was still, that constant of variation was about 1. So looking at these numbers, what is that constant of variation? About 120. So we're going to say b divided by t is about 120. So it does show direct variation. And then you could multiply both sides by t, just like we did with our experiment equations, and there's the equation. And so what's really, really neat is that, maybe a marine biologist, they've collected enough data, so then they have this equation. And so say they're out in the field, really in the ocean, and say that they're on the beach and they find a great white shark tooth. They can actually then use the equation they have to tell what was the body length of that shark. That is really cool. That is super cool to be able to do. All right, any questions on that? So if you want to determine whether you have direct variation from a table, just divide, and if you're getting about the same number, then it's yes. And you can just multiply by whatever you put in the denominator to write that equation. All right, example 4. For some reason I don't have it, but it's on yours. And it says determine whether you have direct variation. So let's write ourselves a note here to determine whether an equation shows direct variation, you solve for y, and if the equation is of the form y equals ax, then yes, it does. But if it's of any other form, it does not. So again, to determine whether an equation shows direct variation, you solve for y. And if the equation is of the form y equals ax, then yes, it does. So let's look at letter A. I have 3x plus 4y equals 0. I'm going to solve this for y. So I subtract 3x from both sides of the equation, and I divide by 4. So I'm getting y equals negative 3/4 x. Does this show direct variation? Yes, it does. All right, letter B is 2y minus 3 equals 5x. I'm going to give you a head start on me, and I want you to solve this for y and see if it's of the form y equals ax. So I'm getting y equals 5 halves x plus 3 halves. Does this show direct variation? No. Carmel, why not?
Because it doesn't equal the, it has the b, so it doesn't.
Exactly. I mean, you're thinking of y equals mx plus b. It has a b to it, so it's no. All right, I want you to find a spot. I want to do one more example. I want to do an extra one. So go ahead and find a spot for this. I think you have a space near the table. Given y varies directly with x, and when x equals 9 when y equals 12. Part A, write an equation that relates x and y. Then when you have that equation, then find y when x equals -6. Alright, so y varies directly with x, and x equals 9 when y equals 12. So what would I start with here? Good. You want to start with y equals ax. They're always going to give you a pair of numbers so you can find a. They gave me x is 9 when y is 12. And this is just like the warm-up we did today. 12 equals a times 9. I divide by 9. We reduce all fractions. Now, does 4/3 equal a? Is that the answer? Is that an equation that relates x and y? No, it doesn't. So be careful with that, because I do have students on this quiz put a equals 4/3 in the answer blank. And I'm like, that's not an equation. Yeah, you've done some right work, but that's not answering the question that I've asked. All right, then B, find y when x equals -6. So Noah, what would I do?
Y equals 3/4 times -6.
4/3, you mean, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
4/3.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
And then you get y equals -8.
Good job. And I like it. You caught the negative there, and that happened yesterday on our quiz. Be careful when you have negatives, and Hannah did a real good job earlier. When you divide two negatives, it's positive. If you multiply two negatives, it's positive. If it's a positive times a negative, that's negative. Okay? All right, any questions?